heartfelt appreciation to Mr. Sharks 202 for granting permission to narrate this story. Be sure to find their details in the description below. Without further ado, let's delve into the tale. I just don't understand. Leo's father shook his head, hand massaging his wrinkled temples. His gray curly hair drooped over his disappointed face like wavy curtains. It always made Leo hate his curly hair too. Not even a basic lift spell? Most kids can do that by 4. Leo knew better than to talk to his father during these moments. His mother stood on the other side of the room watching both of them, silent and worried as usual. "We're out of time," his father said with finality, raising his head back up. "The assessment is tomorrow, and you know what that means." Leo nodded solemnly. How could Get forget when everyone kept reminding him? His father scoffed, talking to himself more than anyone else. Can you imagine it? Leo, son of Council Wizard Merrill, showing up for the annual wizarding assessment in front of everyone and not being able to hex a rat? He brought his head back into his hands. Leo twisted his lips. The assessments were a very public event, and they were always judged by the Grand Council of Wizards in order to decide where people would be placed in society. Those who performed poorly, let alone not performing, they never got good positions. His mother came up behind him and laid a gentle palm on his back. "You should go to your room now." Leo looked at his father one last time before leaving. He had pushed his hair back while resting his hand on his forehead, letting all of the disappointment show like the brightest torch spell. It was the image he carried up into his room. He opened his door and was greeted by a familiar face. "What are you doing here?" "Man, so the rumors are true?" His older sister had one of his tinker toys in her hand. She floated it in front of her to see all sides of it. He pursed his lips. "I thought you were battling the elder beasts on the Great Front." Cleo had her assessment 2 years ago. She was the top of her class and immediately got sent to go battle the great monsters at the border. Father was ecstatic. "I am," she said plainly. Leo's eyes widened. "Is this an ethereal form?" Cleo eyed him quietly and smirked. Leo came rushing toward her, eyes alive with curiosity. "Man, you must be the youngest wizard in centuries to travel through the other realms." Creating an ethereal form required casting your soul through a separate realm and finding your way back out. It was a very dangerous and very difficult spell, but if done right, you can have a temporary version of yourself. Travel anywhere in the world, granted you know the place really well. "Enough about me," she said, setting down on the end of his bed. "Seems you still can't cast." Leo's anger rose back up in his stomach, and the image of his dad stabbed back out at him from his memories. "No." He huffed and walked over to his large workbench, twiddling one of his various inventions in his hand. Being around them always gave Leo a feeling of calm relaxation. The devices felt so real and so malleable. "The assessment is tomorrow." His eyes narrowed as his mind began to come alive with planning and calculations. "And I have a plan." Cleo raised her brows. "Oh?" Leo nodded, walking over and knocking on a large wooden device that sat in the corner of his room. "All magic mutes get sent to the eastern mines to toil their lives away digging gemstone. Might as well make a real show of things before I go too." Cleo winced. She knew just as well as him that anyone with little to no magic ability always goes to the mines. That was the only place for them. "You're going to put on a show?" "Oh yay." He turned back to her, an even more devious idea boiling inside him now. "And you're going to help." She raised her brows. "Pray tell." "I already risk killing father from embarrassment when the crowd sees that I can't cast." He nodded his head towards the machine in the corner. "But if I bring one of these bad boys with me, oh man, that'll kill the whole family tree." Cleo shrugged. "Dust 'em, like you said, you're already going to be sent east. Might as well go out with style." "What do you need me for?" Leo pursed his lips as he nodded. "The test keepers are sworn to let me use anything to show off my skills tomorrow, within reason, that is." "And naturally, you've taken a step out of reason." "Naturally. And naturally, you need me to convince them it's within reason?" "You are a rather influenced wizard now, Cleo." She gave an excited smile and laughed loudly. "I'll cast into the test chambers tomorrow morning and let them know. You just tell me what you need." I'll be watching later from the crowd." It's better I not tell you what I need until tomorrow." He could tell that she hesitated at that, but suppressed her dissent. "All right. I'll trust you." Leo turned his gaze back to the machine, shaking his head slightly. "I'm glad someone does." "Stonecaster!" The crowd roared with approval, shaking the waiting room under the arena as they stomped and hollered. Stonecasting wasn't the most exciting job, but it was respected enough. People needed houses after all. Leo was next up for assessment, and he was already getting stares. He'd been dragging his huge cart around all day, and naturally anything done without magic is met with judgment and disapproval. It's unseemly to do things with your hands or something like that. Leo was tired of hearing about it. Next up, Leo, Sunner, Merrill the Council Wizard, and Jewel the Herbcaster. Leo walked out of the tunnel into the dusty arena. The crowd cheered as was expected of them, but it was quieter than normal. Everyone knew about Leo and his possible muteness. It was one of the busiest assessments in years, simply because people wanted to see if a council wizard's son would be placed at the mines. He covered his eyes from the sun as he looked up at the council. 5 wizards seated in a row, the most powerful casters in the Dominion. His father second from the right. The middle wizard calmed the crowd as she stood up and nodded towards the keepers to begin the assessment. You were allowed to display your skills in any way you pleased. You just had to tell the test keepers what they needed to do. It wasn't all that rare for a young wizard to die while trying to show off their skills. Usually 1 or 2 a year do. People didn't like it, but it was integral that wizards display their skills to the max, even if that meant the occasional casualty. Leo took a deep breath. The test keepers looked horribly nervous. Cleo had obviously done her part. Come on, Leo thought. You all have an oath to do as I say. You better not get scared now. The testers walked over to a pygmy box, small containers that wizards use to cast creatures into and release later. Young wizards commonly use them to flex their combat skills against basic rune wisps or whitewater crabs, all in the hopes that they'd be assigned to the Great Front and bring honor to their family. Leo was about to use the same tactic, except he expected a bit more excitement with his stunt. The crowd leaned in as the testers got ready to open the box. Leo could see his father and mother exchange distant, worried glances. Somewhere out there, he was sure that Cleo was smiling, though he had no doubt she was worried too. Who wouldn't be when you were about to do something this stupid? Leo knew exactly what everyone was thinking when they saw the pygmy box. How would a kid who was supposed to be magic mute defeat something like a rune wisp? Then, a elder beast burst from the box. The massive black-skinned monster roared as its 6 arms stretched to the sky and shook the arena. Bright blue magic pulsed up and down its veins and leaked from its clawed hands with dreadful display. The crowd erupted into a panic, and Leo could hear his father desperately yell for the test to be called off, but everyone knew the rules. The arena was protected by one of the most powerful spells, and meddling with a wizard's assessment was strictly forbidden. Leo took a deep breath in order to calm himself. The creature turned towards him, its 8 black beady eyes focusing on its new prey and furrowing into slants. Leo kept his eyes on the beast and stomped his foot on a small metal pad that was sticking out his cart. Time to dance. The cart started to twist and turn. Wonderfully tuned cogs powered by gems twisted over each other and began to transform the device. Let's dance. The creature took off into a leaping charge, covering itself in bright blue magic to enhance its attack. Leo grabbed the 2 handles that had rose up in front of him, carefully and calmly beginning to aim the device as it finished its shifting. The crowd screamed horribly, and people began running out of the arena for fear of seeing Leo get torn to shreds. Leo was unbothered by the chaos. He was having to do math in his head, quickly trying to calculate the perfect shot. His cart chugged with a movement still, the final pieces moving into place. 200 feet out, he said to himself, ground shaking from the beast's huge form. 150. Clicking and turning, the cart planted 2 large spikes into the ground to hold it still. 100. A humongous gem-lined bolt lifted up from the innards of the machine and planted itself in front of bent strings. 50. Everything snapped into place. The bolt was aligned. 25. The creature roared and jumped into the air, casting a long shadow across Leo as it blotted out the sun. Leo clenched his fist and pulled a metal trigger, launching the large bolt out and smashing it into the creature as it was mid-air. An eruption of smoke and plasma consumed the arena floor and sent Leo flying onto his back. The crowd became silent. Not a single word was said as they all looked with stunned eyes at the hurricane of black smoke that was sitting in the arena. After a whole minute of suspension, the clouds dissipated to reveal Leo. His hair was blown into a mess and he was covered in black smudges, but he was standing proudly over a mangled elder beast. The arena exploded into cheers. All around him, people were shaking their heads from utter shock and smiling with amazement. In between the chaos and clamor, Leo turned to see the face of his father. Sitting in his chair with all other council wizards looking at him, Meryl's jaw was dropped. "It worked, Leo. Bless the gems, it worked. They love it." Leo sucked in his lips with a smile and took in the scene. It was right out of his dreams, just like he had always imagined it. Slowly, he raised his hands to silence the crowd. Wizards, everyone was staring at him, waiting for an explanation to what he just did. "I introduce you to a new form of magic, engineering." Everyone knew that right then and there the wizarding world was changed. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like on our channel. And for every comment that comments "I enjoyed this story," I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.